Hello and welcome back to CQ, the AWS Certification quiz show, where we're here to help you prep for your next AWS exam. I have the wonderful Gerardo back with me, our first returning guest. Gerardo, remind everyone a bit about what you do here at AWS.
Hello everybody, my name is Gerardo Estava. I'm a partner solution architect at AWS. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and I look after partners, which is our ecosystem of channel and partners that do work for our customers. So I help them design and operate AWS using best practices.
Great to have you back. Bit of pressure being our first returning guest.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about our green screen today.
Our green screen? Oh yeah, the green screen. So that is the national tree of the place I come from. It's an Araguaney from Venezuela. So yeah.
Nice choice, I love it today.
Yeah, it's been 10 years since I've moved, but I love my country. And it's a beautiful tree, isn't it? The tree. There's nothing here actually. It's actually it's not an actual tree. It's a green screen.
Thanks for that.
But looks like a tree.
Thanks, Gerardo. So, and I also believe you have news since you were last on regarding your number of certs.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, last time I was here, I had 2 certifications that I was missing, the Alexa certification and the machine learning, and I got them after MJ pushed me to do it. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, I really love certification. It's one of the mechanisms that I personally have to keep up with things and force
a bit
me.
Of a competitive nature.
Yeah, there's a little bit. It's a Venezuelan thing, I guess.
And actually, Gerardo is the only person in ANZ to hold every single cert. So I think that's worth a wee bit of a mention.
Stop it.
All right, are you ready to get into the quiz today?
Let's do it.
So producer John has actually created all of our questions today. This being our second of last episode of season 1, but it's still based on essay. Okay, so Solutions Architect Associate level exam. You ready?
Brilliant. Let's do it.
Let's do this. Question 1, containers.
Okay.
Your application architecture uses microservices deployed in Docker containers.
Yeah.
How can you deploy and manage these containers with the least administrative overhead?
Okay. So one of the tips that I gave about going and answering questions is, before reading the answers, think about the question. You stop after reading the question and don't read the answers, and you get in your head roughly where the thing is going. So by reading this question, before reading the answers, I know there are a couple of ways of running Docker on AWS. You can, of course, run Docker on your own EC2 instance, but that means you're going to have to do all the orchestration of containers there. So that is actually the option that you have the most administrative overhead. Okay. You can run it on Elastic Beanstalk, which is also possible. It removes a lot of the heavy lifting of running infrastructure, but then it doesn't give you a lot of options that people running containers want. The best 2 ways of running containers is actually running it on ECS or on EKS.
Which are?
The ECS is the Elastic Container Service, and EKS is the Elastic Container Service for Kubernetes. So one is the AWS native way of running containers, which integrates amazingly well with all of the AWS services, and EKS is for those that want to use Kubernetes and all the features that the open source community for Kubernetes provides. Now, the question is about minimizing administrative overhead. So by looking at the answers, I think the answer is going to be number 4, because there are a couple of ways you can launch an ECS cluster. And the traditional one is where you actually have to manage the infrastructure where these containers are running. And then there's this second thing called Fargate, which is a launch type that is basically managing all this infrastructure for you.
Launched at reInvent last year?
It was launched, maybe. I don't know. We're not going to ask you when it was launched. She's just being mean with me. So Fargate is super easy. It's the easiest way to actually launch containers because all you care about is your own container. So that would be my answer for this question, number 4.
So you don't even want to look at the other answers as per the actual format of the show?
Okay. The thing is by reading the question, you kind of know where the thing is going.
You just jump straight in there.
And knowing all the ways you can launch containers, you know that Fargate is by default the best way, the one with less heavy lifting that you have to do.
Well,
so the other ones don't mention Fargate, and that to me.
And everyone online has voted with you. 100% gone for number 4.
Awesome.
Let's lock it in and reveal the answer.
There you go.
Well done. Off to a flying start.
Thank you.
And breathe.
Thank you.
Question number 2.
Okay.
Databases. All right, you are building the database tier for an enterprise application that gets occasional activity throughout the day. Which storage type should you select as your default option?
That's very interesting. So, okay, there are multiple storage types, and actually you can see those on the answers. There's magnetic storage, general purpose, which is based on SSD drives, provisioned IOPS, which is for this is the kind of the most performing one because it allows you to provision the amount of IOPS for your volume. So you have really IOPS intensive workloads, you would go with provision IOPS. And finally, cold storage, which is more used for it's the slowest type, but also the most economical.
Okay.
So you use that for things like archival or things that are not heavily accessed. Now, what I like about this question is that it's saying that there's occasional activity throughout the day, and that's a key part of the question. Because if you know general purpose solid state drives really well, or the GP2, that we call them GP2, those give you a baseline performance of 3 IOPS per gigabyte of the volume. But it also has this feature of giving you IO credits if you don't use that capacity. So if you don't use the total capacity that it gives you, it starts kind of accruing credits so that you can burst and you can use when you have that occasional activity throughout the day. So for volumes that are not hit 100% of the time throughout consistently for long periods of time, you would go with general purpose solid state drive because it gives you the ability to burst, but also gives you like a good baseline of performance. So
happy with your answer?
That would be my answer. Yes.
Most people are happy with your answer, not everyone.
Not everyone. Not everyone.
So locking in SSD number 2.
Yes. Brilliant.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to question number 3.
Okay.
Right, 53. All right. What type of DNS record should you use to redirect example.com/store to store.example.com? I can tell John wrote this answer.
Trick question. Trick question. Because this is actually not a functionality you have in Route 53, not a standard DNS functionality. So let's look at the answers.
Okay.
Well, actually, I can see now that the number 4 is this cannot be done. That I'm going to go with that. But let's go through the answers.
Let's do
it. So
it.
A record, that's the normal standard way you use DNS to point to your domain name, to the root of your domain name. CNAME is when you want to put to subdomains like store.example.com. But it's not something you can redirect using DNS. The DNS works in that it points domain names to IP addresses or to subparts of your application.
Okay.
A PTR record is something that is not frequently used, but I've seen it sometimes, and it's a reverse DNS lookup. So basically, when you want to, instead of translating a domain name for an IP address, you want to give it an IP address and see what domain name it's assigned to.
Okay.
So this kind of functionality is not the type of thing that you can do on DNS. If you're building microservices and you're using APIs, and for example, you want to use example.com/store that is something you can use with an API service, such as Amazon API Gateway. But it's not something that you manage at the DNS level.
So locking in number 4.
I'm happy with number 4.
Bit of a mix online for that one. I think it did catch a few people out.
Yeah.
Let's reveal the answer. 4 it is.
Awesome, awesome.
He's trying to trigger us. I wonder what's about to come from him this week. Producer John's actually over in Seattle, everyone, online. So not with us this week, although he's online chatting away. So please feel free to pop your questions in the chat.
Yes.
And let's move on to question number 4.
EC2.
Should be easy for you. All right, which Amazon EC2 purchase option allows you to use your existing per socket, per core, or per VM software licenses?
Okay.
Oh, we haven't had a license question in a while, actually.
Yeah, license is, it's not a
So
hard.
fun.
Yeah, it's not very fun, especially software companies that are to this day are still licensing their software based on hardware affinity. That's somewhat old school, and a lot of the software vendors are evolving and having a lot more cloud-friendly licensing. But for those customers that are running still this type of licensing from some of the traditional applications, of course you can run that on AWS. And the way you run those on AWS is with dedicated hosts. So dedicated hosts, it's kind of a flavor of EC2, where AWS gives you a physical server. It's like a physical server that you actually provision just like any other EC2 instance. So it's immediately provisioned, but it's a physical thing where you have hardware affinity, and as though it can remain compliant with your licensing terms.
Okay.
So my answer is going to be number 3, but let's actually review the other ones.
I think so.
Reserved instances is not a type of an actual instance. It's more like a billing construct that allows customers to kind of commit to use a certain type of instance for a period of time and then getting a discount. It's more of customers helping AWS do capacity management. If we know you're going to use this for a year or for 3 years, we can give you a significant discount. Dedicated instances is similar to dedicated host, but you cannot use dedicated instances for porting your existing licenses. The reason is dedicated instances is this idea of you're not gonna is VPC based or customer based. So an account is not gonna share hardware with any other customer. So it gives you it's for those kind of security or compliance concerns where they don't allow any multi-tenancy and you want to use your own hardware for yourself. However, the individual instances can actually share resources of that hardware, and that's why you cannot use it for bringing your existing licensing. For bringing existing licensing, you actually do dedicated hosts.
Locking that one in?
Yes, locking that one in.
Just a quick check on the questions there. You actually answered them all, so that's fantastic. Locking in number 3.
Yes.
Number 3 it is. Oh, of course. Thank you.
And I have to say,
okay.
Bringing your own license instances is not a type of instance. So this is
I did wonder if you were going to point that out or not.
That's a trick question. The way you bring your own licenses is with dedicated hosts.
Thank you. I would expect that from someone who holds all certifications.
Oh, please.
To be pointing out the absolute false answers. All right, question number 5.
Okay.
ELB. Are you ready?
Yes.
You wish to serve web content via an application load balancer. Which AWS service can respond to requests from an application load balancer?
That's an interesting question, and
Why?
it's actually an easy one, because for a long period of time in AWS, you could only attach EC2 instances to Elastic Load Balancers.
Okay.
So we have different flavors of Elastic Load Balancers. We have the classic one, we have the network one, NLB, and we have the application load balancer.
Yep.
Now, for a long time, only EC2 instances, but actually about a year ago, and please don't hold me on that, but about a year ago, we announced that you could also attach a Lambda function to an Elastic Load Balancer, so you can reply to those requests using serverless compute and not just server full compute, which is an EC2 instance. So you definitely cannot have an Amazon RDS instance attached to a load balancer. That's a kind of a backend database service. CloudFront actually
Goes in
sits
front of everything.
in front. Well done.
Thanks.
You should.
Continue.
Okay. And Amazon CloudFormation, AWS CloudFormation is a service that allows you to define the components of your application as code, so that the provisioning and the updating of those resources is easier. So it's not a physical or a physical resource or a software component of your application. So the answer to this I'm going to go is with AWS Lambda.
Quick question on the chat, if you don't mind. We do just have a request to quickly explain ALB versus NLB.
Absolutely.
Which you did mention, so it's fair.
I did mention it's fair. So
thank you, Shani the QT.
So for a long time we had only ELB, so Elastic Load Balancer. And at some point, and I'm not going to go with dates, but about 2 years ago or 3 years ago,
somewhere,
we decided to actually launch two types of load balancers that are more specialized for the type of work that they do. So the first one was the application load balancer. And the application load balancer is a very specialized load balancer where you can route traffic for applications at the application level. So if you're using containers and you want to make routing decisions based on the path of that, of an API or by container, you use an application load balancer. If you're routing HTTPS traffic, you use an application load balancer. If you have more network-based kind of requirements, so for example, if you have applications that need to absolutely point to an API, to an IP address, or you have massive amounts of traffic that you want to load balance, then you may want to take a look at the network load balancer, or NLB. So basically, specialized, the ELB is the one we had before, and you can keep using that, but we no longer recommend you go with that if you're building something new. You should go either application load balancer or network load balancer if you are load balancing at level 7 or application request, or if you're load balancing at level 3 and you need more of those network features, you go with a network load balancer.
Thank you very much. So for this question, serving web content, we're going with Lambda.
Lambda, yes.
Locking in, you just got it on the poll as well. Lambda,
Awesome.
It is. Awesome. Let's move to question number 6.
Okay.
Trusted Advisor. Okay, we haven't looked at this in a while.
Yeah.
Which of the following are included in the AWS Trusted Advisor checks?
So Trusted Advisor is for those that are not familiar with it, it's an online portal that in the console where we give you tips for optimizing certain things in your AWS environment. So things like cost optimization, fault tolerance, performance, security, and also there are checks around service limits. Now, obviously, there are things that Trusted Advisor gives you and things that it doesn't give you. And an Amazon RDS public snapshot is something that Trusted Advisor gives you. Every time that you take a snapshot of an RDS or an EBS volume, and you happen to make those public, Trusted Advisor is going to give you an alert and say, hey, you have these volumes of data, because customers want to protect their data, and you're making it public. And either you made that intentionally, which is good, but if you didn't, then Trusted Advisor is going to give you that alert and it's going to give you an insight so that you can actually secure it. That's one of the kind of security checks that Trusted Advisor gives you. On the fault tolerance side of things, Elastic Beanstalk is not one of those. So on fault tolerance, you get things like, I don't know, like you have login disabled for S3, or you don't have versioning disabled. So if you lose the data, you're not going to be able to recover it. So that's the kind of thing for fault tolerance that you get. So Elastic Beanstalk is not one of those. With cost optimization, Amazon S3 storage is not one of not ones that you get in Trusted Advisor. There's S3 itself outside of Trusted Advisor gives you analytics. So S3 Analytics give you some insights into what type of S3 class you should use to minimize your cost. But it's not something that you see in Trusted Advisor. In cost optimization, you see other things in Trusted Advisor, like the size of your instances, for example. And Amazon Route 53 domain name expirations, not something you get on Trusted Advisor either, but AWS, we always email or notify the account owners whenever a domain name is coming up for renewal. So discarding options 3 to 4, I'm going to stay with option 1.
You're going against the grain of the online poll. Everyone has mostly gone for number 4.
Well, maybe we launch a feature and I didn't know about it. I'm happy to learn about it on the show.
Do you want to change your answer?
I'm going to stay. No, you know what? I am 100% sure that you get those RDS public snapshot alerts. And the people on Twitch are making me doubt about number 4.
Would you like me to reveal the answer?
I'm going to stay with number 1, yes.
Going with your gut. Okay, let's close that poll and reveal the answer.
Boom. Yeah, I was sure about that one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know
so
you were.
if it was the kind of question that you had to pick 2, maybe I would have gone with a guess with number 4, but I was confident about the public snapshot one.
And you were right. Moving on, question number 7. We are smashing through these today. All right, which AWS service enables IT administrators to create, manage, and distribute portfolios of approved products to end users, who can then access the products they need in a personalized portal?
Okay, so look.
Oh, that was wordy, that one.
I think this is a bit of an easy one, because what we have there is the definition of AWS Service Catalog.
We do.
So Service Catalog is that kind of service where administrators can control and create not only products, but portfolio products that the rest of the company can just self-serve. And it's really good because it helps companies standardize how things are built on AWS. It gives users this self-service kind of portal where they can freely go and provision AWS resources.
Yep.
It also allows administrators to create those products using best practices. So things like fine-grained control. So if you're going to create this type of application, it should be created this way. So yeah, look, that's the definition. But let's go through the other ones to see if there's something else that kind of looks like it.
Okay.
AWS CloudFormation, we spoke about it in one of the previous questions, is how you define your infrastructure components as code, so you can create, manage, and update that collection of AWS resources in a controlled and predictable way. So it's not related to the actual distribution of portfolio of products that are approved for users. AWS Marketplace is a way where you can actually provision software products that come with their licenses on EC2. And Marketplace also includes SaaS products, include CloudFormation. We also have a marketplace for machine learning algorithms. So it's where you actually provision, you either publish and sell your software products to others, or you as a buyer, you provision those resources. And Amazon Workspaces is our end user compute solution, or virtual desktop solution, where you can have a full virtual desktop in the cloud. So instead of running your software in your own machine, you can have a thin client and access your laptop or your computer in the cloud. That's what Amazon Workspaces is. So given that that's the definition, I am 100% confident that this is going to be Service Catalog.
Well, I think John was giving us a bit of a break with this one.
Yes.
I don't think we'd see one this easy in the exam.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I don't think you'll see something this easy.
Let's close that poll. So you're locking in number 2.
Yes.
Let's do it. Number 2, it of course is. But thanks for all the extra info. All right, so let's move on to question number 8.
Okay.
S3. All right, versioning has been activated for an Amazon S3 bucket.
Yes.
How will storage charges be calculated for an object in the bucket that has multiple versions? Nice.
Okay, so this one is actually you pay for every single version every time that you do versioning on a bucket, and that's interesting, because some if you default of activating versioning by default, and this is a kind of object that changes frequently, that it means you're going to be paying for each individual version of that.
Yep.
And there's tools you can use in order to remove old versions or archive those or versions. You can automate all of that in order to manage your costs.
Yes.
But the way that versioning works by default is customers pay for every single version. So, so number one, all versions are charged. The most recent version is charged, not true. The file size of the largest version, not true. And difference, no, we don't do that diff in S3. You pay for every single version.
And we can set an auto delete for when
you can set
those versions.
You can have life cycle controls to delete older versions. And just like anything on AWS, everything is an API. So there's through APIs or SDK or third-party tools that you use for your cloud assessment. It helps you manage costs for if you don't actually need to keep that data or all those different versions.
Awesome. Locking in number one.
Yes.
Number one, it is. We didn't quite get 100% on that one though. So, producer John did leave us a final question, so I assume he knew you would fly through all of these, seeing as we normally finish at 8. But let's move on to question number 9 today for our returning guest. All right, VPC. Ready? Last question of the day.
Let's do it.
How can you configure VPC peering between VPCs in 2 different regions?
Trick question, John. Trick question, John. Because
Damn it.
If you had asked me this question about a year and a half ago, I would have gone, can't do it, trick question. But it turns out we launched that feature recently. So Amazon VPC Peering or VPC Peering was a feature that we launched a long time ago. And what it allowed you to do is within a single region, you can make connectivity between 2 VPCs really easy. So if you have resources in one VPC and resources in another one, and you wanted them to talk, there were ways of doing it, like if you made them public, but sometimes for security reasons you don't want to do that. You don't want to go across the internet. Some customers created VPN tunnels between them, which adds some administrations. So we created this VPC peering feature that allows them to do it within a region. So if you ask me this question a long time ago, I would have gone, not possible. But about a year and a half ago, and please don't, I'm not about a year and a half ago, it could be 2 years or 1 year, we launched this feature we extended this feature to be able to be done across multiple regions. So that's my explanation, but now let's look at the answers. So you can use number 1, purchase direct connect. You don't need to do direct connect. You could, but it's not an easy way. And this is about configuring VPC peering. So you could use direct connect to make multiple regions and VPCs communicate, but in this case we want to use VPC peering. Create a VPC endpoint in both VPCs and connect AWS private link. Not the way you do it in multiple regions. You could do it if it's within the region with private link, but not across multiple regions. And VPC peering, you simply use VPC peering between the 2 VPCs. That's going to be the answer. And use an AWS side-to-side VPN. That was a workaround that we did before we had the initial feature. So I'm going to go with option 3.
Locking in number 3 for final question of the day. Of course, number 3 is, so John was not able to trick you at all today with any of the trick questions. So what we might do to finish up this episode, Gerardo, tip of the week from yourself. Do you even remember which tip you did last time?
I don't remember. I think it was about reading the question and trying to come up with the answer before reading the answers, which I already did here. But I'm going to go with another one.
Okay.
Look, one of the things that I really like about this cloud world and this moment that we're living is that there's so much information available online. There's technologies moving really fast, but that technology and learnings about it, everything's available online. So if you really want to learn, it's almost anyone with access to internet that has the desire to learn can do it. So even if you work in an environment that you're doing things that you prefer doing others, just let that curiosity go and go online and learn about something new. There's so much. Like, for example, I struggle with AWS. There's so many certifications in so many areas, and there's analytics and data lakes, and it looks kind of overwhelming. But if you're a bit programmatic about it and you set some time each day or maybe each week to learn something new, and you create like a to-do list. I want to learn about, I don't know, content delivery networks or data lakes, and you start going one by one. There's so many tools online. So we live in an incredible time where all these technologies are available at our fingertips, and we can be really curious and learn and learn and learn. You're never going to learn too much. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
And you'll have some competitors at your heels.
Yeah. So yeah, unlock that curiosity and learn all the things, because we live in an amazing time and we have access to all these tools that help us unlock our imagination and create amazing things.
Thank you so much for being with us once again today, Gerardo.
Happy to be here.
I'm sure we will see you in season 2, but until then, we have one more episode left, which will be next week. So hopefully we will see you all there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.